Mr. Bartlett, in your testimony, you expressed support for a value-added tax and higher taxes on middle class. How much would you raise taxes on the middle class and low-income classes?
Oh, I can't say a number, but incidentally, I don't know if you remember, but one of the first times I ever testified before Congress was before a subcommittee that you chaired back in 1984. So we go back a long ways. I mean, I look at foreign countries, and I see that they have much more stable fiscal systems than we have, largely because they raise a lot more revenue than we do. And the reason they're able to raise that revenue is because they do it very conservatively by taxing consumption, which is what the value-added tax does.
I think I'm going to stop you at this point because I got some questions I want to ask you of other panelists. Mr. Hodge, an underappreciated part of the 2017 tax reform and the Bush-Obama tax cuts was relief from the alternative minimum tax. What would you be the effect of going back to the pre-2001 AMT rules?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the AMT is one of those classic cases in tax policy where a tax was aimed at the rich and eventually hit the middle class. And the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act did a great deal in raising the threshold so fewer Americans were being affected by it. The AMT was sort of a pandemic of tax policy, where it was hitting families in the suburbs of high-income areas such as New York, Chicago, California, and so forth. And the TCJA did a great deal to stem that tide against American households.
Also for you, Democrats have criticized the 2017 tax law as a giveaway to the wealthy. However, at the same time, they've advocated repealing the $10,000 cap on state and local tax deductions. So for you, wouldn't such a change overwhelmingly benefit the wealthy and make the tax code less progressive?
It's hard to claim that the TCJA was a big windfall for the rich and then say at the same time we want to give them a windfall by expanding the state and local tax deduction. It would be a huge windfall for the rich, and if anything, we should eliminate the SALT deduction rather than expand it.
Dr. Michel, the Inflation Reduction Act greatly expanded green energy subsidies for corporations and businesses. Part of this expansion included adding new features such as transferability and direct pay to select energy incentives. While Democrats complain about corporations paying little or no tax, won't these expanded credits and new features enable more wealthy taxpayers and corporations to pay little or no tax?
Yes, the point of most of these tax credits, like the ones included in the IRA and many others throughout the tax code, are designed to lower business taxes from the statutory rate all the way down to zero. JCT looked at these credits for electricity production and investment, and I think they found 90% of the benefit goes to companies with over $1 billion in gross receipts. I think if Democrats wanted to cut the tax rates of large corporations, I wish they had expanded expensing and lowered the corporate tax rate. I think this would have been better for sustainable energy production and would have been better for the economy as a whole.
Dr. Michel, Biden proposed $5 trillion in new tax hikes in his recent budget. However, even with these massive tax hikes, deficits and debt continue to grow and grow at an unsustainable rate. So is it possible to stabilize our rising debt solely on the backs of the rich?
No, it's not. The $4.7 trillion in tax hikes, I like to think of this as sort of an upper bound of what's politically possible to raise taxes on the rich coming from the president's budget. Only covers about 20% of the $20 trillion 10-year budget deficit. None of this is, if you sort of go beyond that and confiscate every dollar earned over $500,000 a year, you still don't, from Americans, you still don't cover next year's budget deficit. And this doesn't include the economic costs of doing something like that, or the additional spending that has been proposed. There's simply just not enough money at the top of the income distribution to fund the current size of government, let alone the growth that's projected.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.